ESPN's Mike Rodak covers the Buffalo Bills. He is in London. Cheerio, tea and crumpets. Mike Rodak, how's London?
It's great. We're on a bus. We just passed the Walmart and a Pizza Hut. I mean, just all the American essentials, right?
It's like you're in Buffalo. It's like you never left except for that whole flight thing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You know, you didn't sleep, I don't think, 1 minute on that flight. So yesterday was a little bit of a grind out here in London, but feeling better today, you know?
I'm glad you're feeling better. How is Percy Harvin feeling? What is that situation?
It's a strange situation. I think it's only gotten weirder as the week has gone on, and really since last week as well. I mean, you know, his status changed last week, which was kind of the first indication that Friday practice when he was listed as limited, and then he didn't play in that game on Sunday. But the fact of the matter is that he's not here. He's not in London. We asked Rex today about the situation. He says he doesn't know where Percy Harvin is. So this is a guy who has a history of obviously some issues in the locker room in Seattle and Minnesota to some extent as well. So whether he's back with the Bills after the bye week, maybe he reconsiders what's going on, or maybe this is more of a long-term thing and they put him on IR, or maybe he actually retires. Who knows? It's gone from kind of a run-of-the-mill injury situation to something that could have more of a lasting effect on the Bills.
Rex has been trying to convince the media all week that it was personal issues with Percy Harvin. Is that accurate?
Well, I was told there's no personal issues, really to that extent, sort of a mental issue. It doesn't sound like that's true. It sounds like it's just simply him being frustrated with a hip injury and also a knee injury is what Schefter reported. It hasn't been on the injury report, so that might be a question for Rex as well, as why the knee injury hasn't been listed. But my understanding is that it's simply about the injury.
ESPN's Mike Rodak. He is in London. Bills, Jacksonville on Sunday morning. Kickoff there. You mentioned the Tyrod Taylor injury. What is the timetable on his return since he's been ruled out Sunday?
It will be a month when the Bills come back and play the Dolphins after the bye week. It'll be a month since his injury against the Titans. So I think that's pretty much the initial timetable, or what the typical timetable is for a knee sprain like that. It's pretty reasonable to expect him back for that Dolphins game. You have a week of rest now, the rest of this week at least, and obviously next week, the bye week. We're talking nearly 2 weeks until he's on the practice field for a game setting for that Dolphins game. I think by then there's a pretty strong chance that he's healed up. I would expect him to play against the Dolphins November 8th.
E.J. Manuel's going to be the starter. If E.J. goes out there and lights it up, he had some moments of brightness last week. Could we actually have a quarterback controversy, or is this Tyrod's job no matter what?
Tyrod Taylor is Rex Ryan's hand-picked quarterback. Obviously, Doug Whaley has his own ties to EJ, but there's, who runs the show here? It's Rex Ryan. I mean, I don't think if EJ Manuel, unless he has some sort of wild performance against the Jaguars, that there's really any sort of controversy, but who knows what Doug Whaley's thinking at this point.
ESPN's Mike Rodak in London with the Bills playing Jacksonville on Sunday. How much do we make out of this public rift between Rex Ryan and his defensive linemen?
I would say there's some level of frustration with those guys. Obviously, they put up big numbers last year, and that got Jerry Hughes paid, and that got Marcel Darius paid, and they're not putting up those same numbers. Obviously, none of them are in a contract situation this year, but I think they like having that public reputation. And in fact, you've heard guys allude to that. Marcel Darius is talking yesterday about what the media is saying about him and how people aren't, satisfied with the sack numbers. Those are things that players pay attention to, and I think that's important to them. Of course, if the Bills win this weekend and they have 0 sacks, I don't think it'll be as big of an issue as it was after they lost last weekend and had 0 sacks.
Mike, how shocked are you that with all this talent on defense, Rex isn't getting more out of them?
I'm somewhat shocked. I mean, even when Rex's teams with the Jets were starting to go downhill, he still had some good defenses there for a few years. Obviously, I think the last 2 years were a different story, but those teams were so devoid of talent that it was hard for anybody to win there. But for a while, I mean, Rex Ryan was really one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL. So you figure that you give him the talent that he has with his team. The talent on defense is as good as any team in the NFL. So to see Rex Ryan not be able to use that to figure it out, I think is surprising. But I think that also could indicate that it could be a problem with players in their communication and how they're understanding the system, which takes some of the burden maybe off of Rex.
ESPN's Mike Rodak. He's in London with the Bills at Mike Rodak on Twitter with Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team.
Mike, what do we know about running back Carlos Williams?
Yeah, we haven't seen him at all. He didn't make the trip to London. I think the last time we saw him was during that Giants game, and we don't really know which play of that game when he suffered a concussion. But the fact that he's missed 3 weeks now is pretty concerning. The Bills have held off on putting him on IR, but you'd have to imagine if he continues to miss time here, that has to be an option, just because of the number of injuries they have and their need really to get players back and healthy. So at this point, there's been no update, as far as where he is in the protocol and when he's going to show up. Maybe after the bye week, he has a chance to kind of take a step forward. But right now, the Bills are really in a waiting pattern, holding pattern with him.
ESPN's Mike Rodak. All right, Mike, the Bills, 3-3. Their last 3 games have pretty much been a dud, even though they beat the Titans. It was only 14-13. What do we make out of this team so far, 6 games into the season and into the Rex Ryan era?
They're very mediocre. In fact, Rex was asked that question yesterday, and he said, what do you think of your team right now? And he said, hey, we're 3-3. And I think that's probably the best way of putting it, is that they're right in the middle. And there's not many teams like that in the NFL this year. I believe they're only one of 4 teams who are 3-3 right now. And that's almost helping them out because there's so many bad teams. There's 18 teams that are under 500 right now. And they're still 7th in the AFC in terms of the playoff seeding. They're right out of that playoff range. So even though they've had some of those bad games, they're still in the mix. And there's obviously a chance for them to make the playoffs, but they do need to clean up, some of these bad games that they've had against the Giants and the Titans in particular. The lesser opponents, you need to beat those guys. And those are the games that you look on our schedule coming up. The Dolphins and the Texans and the Jets to some extent. I think you need to beat those teams. Even if you lose to the Patriots on Monday night in New England, as long as you win some of those conference games, some of those division games, you're putting yourself in that range for the playoffs.
Worst weather right now, Buffalo or London?
Oh, London's actually not bad right now. I'd say mid-50s. It's cloudy. It was rainy yesterday. It's kind of wet at practice, but the rest of this week looks pretty clear. So it's not tropical weather by any means, but it's actually not bad. Not too bad in London here.
Have you actually had tea and crumpets?
I have not. I've had a few ales, shall we say, but
Nice.
No tea and crumpets around here quite yet.
Good enough. Is it true that you have not seen one dentist in London? Is that accurate?
I cannot confirm or deny that.
Okay, get to the bottom of that. That's really important. ESPN's Mike Rodak. Check him out at ESPN.com. He's on the Bills beat, Bills-Jaguars on Sunday morning, at Mike Rodak on Twitter. Mike, thanks for joining us across the pond, man. And if you need help paying that long-distance bill, just call Levack.
What?
Yeah, no problem. You got it.